Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. My name is Aliza Amin, and I am a policy associate at the Tabadlab Center for Digital Transformation and co-author of our latest working paper, Energizing the Tech Investment Ecosystem in Pakistan. I am lucky to be joined today by the principal author of our report and head of research at Business Recorder, Khizar. As many have mentioned before me, it is evident that 2021 has been a record-breaking year for Pakistan in terms of tech investment and in particular, startup investment. As the Prime Minister Imran Khan has previously said, it is clear that Pakistan is open for business. As an emerging player, this country has an opportunity to sustain this momentum and succeed as a global tech destination. However, there are chronic issues that will require structural change in order to generate local and foreign investment. In our presentation, we explore how transformations to the policy and regulatory landscape can enable this structural change and help Pakistan become investor-friendly for tech entrepreneurs. There are currently 3 factors that characterize the digital opportunity that Pakistan currently faces. The first of these is a set of chronic economic challenges that impact our enabling environment. This includes high fiscal deficit and current account deficit that impedes the growth of our GDP. Furthermore, Pakistan suffers from a bloated public sector that breeds inefficiencies, reduces competition, and creates financial losses. In addition, continued depreciation of the Pakistani rupee reduces the returns of foreign investors and sponsors. The second characteristic of this opportunity is Pakistan's current demographic, which informs the strength of our workforce. At a median age of 23 years, Pakistan is currently seeing the youngest population ever in the country's history. This allows us a timed window until 2045 to realize demographic dividends. This will require a large and diverse enough economy that can productively engage and absorb this workforce. Finally, Pakistan's digital opportunity is defined by the accelerated trends of digital adoption during the COVID-19 pandemic. These promising digital trends indicate what the way forward may look like. For instance, between 2020 and 2021, mobile broadband subscription had increased by 19 million to reach almost 100 million. E-commerce and digital payments in the financial services sector have also seen a rapid increase during this crisis period, as mobile banking transactions have increased by over 100% over the past year. As stated previously, startups have also witnessed record-breaking funding rounds, whereas IT and ICT exports are also growing and crossed the $2 billion mark in the previous fiscal year. It is evident that investor interest is increasing in Pakistan's accelerating tech space, and this trend has only further speeded up during the pandemic. Over the past 4 years, significant attempts have been made to improve government efforts in facilitating the tech sector's growth through changes to the policy and regulatory regime. Pakistan's technology policy landscape is influenced by a range of instruments that broadly fall into 2 categories. This includes the investment regime, which defines and governs the overall climate for tech investors in Pakistan. This also includes the technology regime, which impacts sector-specific issues and affects how the technology space will evolve. From the introduction of the Digital Pakistan policy in 2018, to initiatives that intend to grow e-commerce and digital payments, such as the National Payment System Strategy, to policies and legislations that govern the creation of tech zones and the channeling of foreign funding for startups. These combined regimes determine how Pakistan's tech sector is understood from an opportunity point of view and impact the type of investments made. These policies, however, can have unintended but lasting consequences for the trajectory of Pakistan's growth, particularly in an ever-evolving and globalizing market and geographical context. What impact and relevance do these developments have to realize Pakistan's technology dream? In the second part of our presentation, our principal author, Khizar, will be assessing the strengths of our policy landscape and will help us assess how Pakistan can move forward and emerge as a global tech destination. Thank you.
Thank you, Aliza, and Mr. President, Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking time out for us and give us the opportunity to present you the case which we have put, Aliza, Hamad, and Umar as a team. We worked really hard on that. So, yeah. So the thing which we need to see is that first we need to assess based on the context. Aliza said that is to assess the policy landscape. And we need to see more in the long term how to have that coherent policy. So the thing is this, we have some immediate short-term issues, we have some long-term issues, and we need to address them both with the thinking of the long term. So the first thing what we need to see is the coherence in the policy architecture. So the problem in the Pakistan, there's so many players, there's so many stakeholders working in their own silos and trying to do something which they want, but because they all are doing simultaneously things which are not really aligned with each other, so the suboptimal result is the case. So we need to have the alignment of priorities and incentives. We need to sit down, we need to have one platform from where to think and have those design policies and then define goals and objectives for all the stakeholders and to work on that and to enable the private sector to come in and invest there and then of course for us to reap fruit. So the participatory and agile policy design is important, or rather is imperative. So without doing so, we'll be moving one step forward and two step backward, or we just keep on moving in the loop. And time is running short, as Aliza mentioned that demographic dividend Pakistan would have till 2045 or something. And we started this having in 1990s. So more than the half of the time is lost. But the technology, and after the COVID, the emergence of the technology at a larger scale is giving us the opportunity to compensate on the time lost what we have in the past 3 decades or so, to work on the last 2 decades so that the Pakistan can prosper as all what we want. And by the time Pakistan would have its 100 years of celebration and independence, we would see a new transformed digital Pakistan. So we need to think today to what we need to get into 2047 and beyond. So these are some important elements which we need to see that, and based on those, we have set up the context. Yeah. So the first thing, the most important thing is about how to have those policies. Yeah. So how to look at the way forward? The first thing we need to see that the investment ecosystem in Pakistan. So the first thing is, we all know that the firefighting is the word for Pakistan when it comes to economic management. You got a high fiscal deficit, you've been running this for many years, you got an external account problem every now and then, the boom-bust cycle is frequenting, and that is not letting us to think on the long term. And the firefighting from the State Bank and the Ministry of Finance has really come on the way, and the long-term goals, especially for the technology, from the other stakeholders like Ministry of Information Technology, Science and Technology, the regulator PTA, and even the STZA and the other stakeholders, is not really working on. So those things we need to understand, that how to have those move away from that fiscal and monetary pressure and focus more on the technology, because if we invest rightly in technology, going forward, these fiscal and monetary problems would solve by themselves. So we need to think beyond those when it comes to technology. That's the most important thing, that we need to have that. The other problem is the government, administration, and accountability complexities. Government is a very complex animal. I mean, there are different layers of governments, and within each layer, there are different departments. They don't really harmonize with each other. They don't really talk to each other. They work in their silos, and then the processes are very complex, and the accountability fear, we all know that, is hindering people to taking from their risk. And so here, how to work on that and how to use digital tools to work on that, that's the one thing we need to do that. And of course, the most important thing, dividend, is that average age of this country is 23. Now, I don't think so anyone of 23 year of age is sitting in this room. So what we are doing, what we are talking about is for the people who are to come on that. So one thing, we need to have more engagement with the people of that age, and we need to think more in coming in their shoes. We need to think how our kids are behaving, how the younger ones are behaving, and think for them. It's not based on the past. So that's a very important message for all of us. So here are this is, so they're the recommendation. Sorry for this technology. So we have some recommendation. Some recommendation are for immediate basis. That's there, yeah. So the first thing we need to fix the investment climate. I mean, first we need to protect the right of existing investor. We have one big investor sitting right in front of us, Telenor, and their other investor, they have invested in 2000, when we deregulated, privatized, and incentivized the telecom industry, and it reaped benefits. Many new players come into it. Islamabad has new corporate employee, and the country has changed the landscape. And the PTCL, think about the PTCL, think about what we have today. But these investors are not making returns. These investors are facing the problem of the taxation. These investors are facing problem of the regulation. So all these we need to do is to work on those. And one way to do is to work on the STZA model. So how to work on that? You have to form a silo, as in what you do in Dubai. You have a different DFIC kind of model. You need to build something on that. And then the most critical element is to invest in your human development. So the Pakistan, the IT graduates are less. So if we want to go to, increase our exports, increase our footprint, we need to have more graduates. And here, friends like Javed and all are sitting, they need to think about to create a boot camp or something where we can work and develop the half-cooked graduate from the other universities, and how to, and then we need to think with the ambassador and all that, how can we bring those remote workers into the domain in Pakistan with remote working environment really working on that. The other factor which is the very key is the improving connectivity. Like in 1930s, Keynes said that build the roads and the investment follow, economy will grow. It came out of the recession. And going forward, the world followed that model. Now the roads are made even in Pakistan. But we need to build a different kind of a road network, that infrastructure network. And for that infrastructure, the first thing is to have the radio spectrum. And when we talk about the radio spectrum, the finance ministry always think about the revenue generation from that. So if the industry is paying base high fee on that, they won't invest. Why they don't invest? Because there's not return what they've invested in the past 15 years. So it's a vicious cycle. So we need to work on that. We need to think on the future, and we need to work on a way that provide them at a low cost of free the new allocation of the frequency, and have them to invest, and eventually will generate revenues from that. And the other thing is that in Pakistan, their returns are very low, and there's this predatory pricing is this. And in dollar terms, returns are getting lower and lower. So they're not investing in the infrastructure because of that. The good and the bad customer are not being, they're not separated. So there is a quality decline in the quality of service, especially voice. So they need to invest. For that, they need to get the spectrum free and invest. And we have to work on the predatory prices. So they have incentive to invest. And when they invest, you have the better quality of services to going on. And the next thing is about establishing technology as a value and a norm. So, I mean, think about making Pakistan as a text destination, Pakistan. Think about something, we brand Pakistan as a text destination. Like we invite people for tourism and everything. We invite people, we showcase Pakistan as a tech destination with young people, bright people, and invite the investor and invite the big groups here to come and participate in that. And for that, we need to fix on the investment promotion metric. We just look from the entrepreneurial point of view. We don't look from the technology worker point of view. So we need to look at the technology worker point of view as well. And of course, then we need to work on different other areas where you have. So those are some short-term investments, so recommendation and some decisions which are required to be taken immediately in the next, let's say, 1 month to 6 months or 1 year. Then there are long-term policies, which we need to do that. So first, we have to have vision. We need to look beyond 6 months. We need to look beyond 1 year. We need to look beyond electoral cycle. We need to look at 20 years from now. Our average age is 23. So those kids who are less than 23, when they'll be in their 40s, 50s, 60s, we need to look on for them. We need to provide them the platform to capture on this opportunity they have. So for that, we need to bring an umbrella framework for the technology investment policy. Someone has to take the onus. There are multiple bodies working in Pakistan, but there's no one as such taking the onus. So we have to think that if it is STZA, if it is Ministry of IT, if it is Ministry of Science and Technology, or whoever. I think one thing, what suggestion came from one of the participant here it should be coming from the PM house. If PM is taking that, then it's the right approach. And I think I request the president to take this issue to the PM and ask him to drive this technology, because that's for the future. That's what the youth we talk about. That's what the youth, the agenda you came in for. And then you have to have a shared priorities to align competing incentive across public sector agencies. Like you have State Bank, you have Ministry of Finance, you have those ministries involving in that. Those ministries like IT, STZA, and Science and Technology, they think in the long term. They say that provide this incentive to this. When it comes to Ministry of Finance, okay, we need tax, we need non-tax revenues. When we go to the State Bank, okay, we need to see the import of the mobile phones, we need to see the import of all those things. So we need to take technology out of them and look at the other factors. And all the people have to be there for this. The next thing is that market development. So again, Institute of Skill Emergency. That's the way key. You have huge population, but their skill set is low. And fortunately, in this sector, technology sector, the skill set can be achieved in a shorter time than you need someone to become a doctor or engineer or an accountant. So you have to have a skill emergency, you have to build that, and you have to produce the quality graduates, create boot camps with the industry, with the government, and work on that. Then you need to work on promoting the localization to boost capacity. The localization of technology, have SMEs coming into it. Budding entrepreneurs coming into it. Usually the policy is captured by the big boys in the textile, in the automobile and all that. Technology is a new area. The young boys, in their 30s, in their 20s, in their 40s, they're coming up. And they're a different breed. Bring them on. Change the rent-seeking culture to market-seeking culture to the efficiency-seeking culture. That's the key to it. Then you have to accelerate the paddle on the digitalization of the government. Again, government is a complex animal. There's so many processes. There's so many inefficiencies. You digitize them, When you digitize them, you create opportunities in the private sector. And the private sector comes and invests and work for the government. Based on that, the private players in the corporate sector come and get the demand from that. And then you have this to work for the export sector on that. And of course, you have to protect the intellectual property rights. And last but not the least is about the overall governance and capacity. So again, I've said that all, revamp the institution architecture, think in a different way, behavioral change, bring the latent entries into the people, bring young people into the government, and then you have to have a right framework institution by establishment division and have the PM office, I would say, to get an onus of it and work on it. And I hope this presentation, what we give, you would read this paper, and this would have some impact on the policy making. And 30 years down the road, people would say that the technology is really doing good in Pakistan, what we thought in 2021. Thank you.